Ezekiel, chapter 1. Prophecy concerning the Lord in respect to the Word, the divine external sphere of the Word, a representative of it as a man, conjunction of celestial and spiritual things there, the quality of the natural of the Word, its spiritual and celestial which are conjoined, the love of spiritual good and truth, and the love of natural good and truth, their distinction and oneness, the turning or looking of all toward one, the sphere of the Word, from divine good and divine truth, from which is the life of the Word, the doctrine of good and truth, acting in unity with the Word, the divine above and in the Word. It is divine truth and its influx, the Lord above the heavens, the divine love and the divine truth pertaining to him. Ezekiel chapter 2. The word from the Lord to the prophet, respecting the Jewish church, that it did not receive the word. It was against the word and the Lord. There is everywhere in the word a lamentation over that church. Ezekiel chapter 3. He should be instructed in the word, which in itself is delightful. He should teach those that have the word, and consequently are able to live according to the divine commandments, but they do not so live, while with others it would be otherwise. He should not fear their obduracy, but should teach them. It is perceived that the state of the church has been changed entirely in respect to the word and doctrine from the word. He was indignant that it should be so. But that he might represent the word, he would be guilty if he did not reveal their falsities and evils, and not guilty if he did reveal them. It is according to the sense of the letter which he must explain. He must not speak from himself, but from the Lord. Ezekiel chapter 4. Representation of the perverted church in the church. He should represent the falsities of the church, and the church besieged by them. He should represent the hardness of their heart, from which it is that they have no fear. He should also represent the church besieged by falsities of evil and evils of falsity. He should represent the falsification and adulteration of the sense of the letter of the word, by which everything of the church has perished. Ezekiel chapter 5. It is represented how they have destroyed the sense of the letter. In part, they have adulterated the sense of the letter, in part have falsified it, and in part forsaken it. Nevertheless, they will continue to falsify it. They will profane all the truths of the church, because they have perverted the truths of the church more than others. Falsities have destroyed goods, and evils truths, until nothing of good and truth is left. And because they have destroyed the church by profaning it, they will perish, as above. Afterward the church will be instituted among others, since all things of the word, of doctrine, and of the church have previously been consummated by profanities and by evils and falsities. Ezekiel chapter 6. To all who are in evil love and in falsities from such love in the church, they will perish by reason of falsities. All of the worship derived from truth and good has been destroyed, because there is nothing but evil and falsity. Those who depart from evils and falsities will not perish. Lamentation over this, that all who are in evils and falsities will be destroyed. Ezekiel chapter 7. The Last Judgment. They are to be destroyed on the day of the last judgment. This will take place when the Lord comes. Then they will perish by their evils, falsities, and profanities. Some will be left, but even these will have no truth or good. They will draw near to those who have perverted all things of the church. Falsification of the word. They cannot repent, because they cannot be led away from evils and falsities. Ezekiel chapter 8. Profanation of what is holy. The Lord is represented in respect to divine love, and it is shown how the holy of the word has been profaned, namely, that they have separated themselves from the holy of the worship of the church. Diabolical loves have perverted the lowest sense of the word. They have instituted a worship in accordance with those loves by adulterating all things of good, and adoring the devil in place of the Lord. They have closed against themselves the way to all mercy. Ezekiel chapter 9. Visitation and judgment upon those who are of the church. Exploration of their quality as respects the word, separation of the evil and the good, destruction of those in whom there is no good or truth, judgment upon the evil. There is no compassion because there is nothing but what has been profaned. Ezekiel chapter 10. The institution of the church by means of the word and by means of doctrine therefrom. The divine spiritual of the word, there forming the church, is described, from which the internal and the external of the church is full of the divine. From this the doctrine is divine. Doctrine from the word, which is spiritual within. It should act in unity with the word. It is full of divine truths. It is known from the word that it is such inwardly and outwardly. Doctrine is from the word. Influx of the Lord therefrom into the church. Conjunction of all things of the word and consequent life. Ezekiel chapter 11. Doctrine falsified. Beginning of the perversion of the church by means of falsities, the cauldron here meaning doctrine, and the flesh the people, by falsifications of the truth of doctrine. It will be even worse, and they will perish by reason of things falsified, because they will pervert all things. All who are in falsities must be scattered. The church will consist of few. A new church will be instituted by the Lord, which will be in truths from him, at the time when the former church is being destroyed. The word will enlighten the new church. This is made manifest to those who are in spiritual captivity. Ezekiel chapter 12. Vastation of the church and fulfillment of the prophecy. They are opposed to the Lord and the word. It is represented that the church has departed from them through the falsification of the word in respect to the sense of the letter, until there is no longer any church. They have destroyed the chief truths by reasonings from the natural man, and consequently the remaining truths, so that there is little left. It is not known what good and truth are. The coming of the Lord will not be delayed. It is vain for them to say that the prophecies of the word concerning the Lord will be fulfilled after a long time. Ezekiel chapter 13. The doctrine of the church falsified. Respecting those who from their own intelligence hatch out doctrine or falsify doctrine, they do not stand in the day of judgment. They say that it is the word of the Lord, and yet it is not. They will be shut out from the church. They falsely interpret the truths of the word. They will be destroyed. They will have no protection against the hells. The affection for falsifying. From such affections arise persuasions of falsity, by which they lead astray. They will perish, and those who do not suffer themselves to be led astray will be protected. Ezekiel chapter 14. Those who depart from the worship of the Lord have no enlightenment from the word. The church is of this description. If they do not become converted, they cannot be enlightened in truths from the word, and the church will be devastated, until there be nothing of the doctrine of truth in it. They must not go back, but must acknowledge the Lord. When there is no longer any truth or good in the church, intercession will not avail in the least. Neither will intercession be of any avail when evil desires take possession of the church. So likewise, when falsities take possession of the church, likewise when adulteration of good takes possession of it. When these have taken possession of the church, another church will be established, on which the Lord will have mercy. Ezekiel chapter 15. There is no longer any spiritual good, none whatever, since that good has been utterly destroyed by evil love. Such are those who are in the church. From evil love they will perish, and thus they will have no church. Isaiah chapter 16. The successive states of the Jewish church. There was nothing in it but falsity and evil. It was forsaken by the Lord from the beginning because it was without anything of the church. After a time, truths and goods of every kind and species were given to it through the word, and thus evils and falsities were removed. Thus it could have been in intelligence. It falsified all things of the word. It extinguished truths and goods and became as in the beginning. It turned truths into falsities, by knowledges of the natural man, by traditions, and by reasonings from them, finally profaning truths. It exalted itself above all men. It obtruded its falsities on others. They will utterly perish by the falsities by which the truths of the word have been destroyed. Thus they will be as in the beginning. The like has come to pass with the Israelitish church, but in a less degree. Nevertheless, the church in general shall be restored. It is everywhere better than in the Jewish church. A new church is to be instituted among others. Ezekiel chapter 17. How the ancient church was instituted by the Lord, and what it became among the Jewish nation. The eagle, meaning the understanding, and Lebanon, the rational of the church. Those who were in the capacity to understand were brought to the church. They were brought into the Lord's spiritual church and instructed. They became the church. Others succeeded, who had not the rational of the understanding, of whom the church was to consist, and to whom all divine truths were given, because the word was given them. But they utterly rejected all things of the church, so that they could not but be devastated of them. They destroyed them by reasonings from the natural man, excepting as yet a few, who, however, were natural external, without an internal. Therefore they have destroyed those things which were of the church. They will perish by means of reasonings from the natural man, and will therefore be dispersed. The Lord will establish a new church of others in their place. Ezekiel chapter 18. It is said, if the fathers are evil, their offspring also are evil. But the offspring are not condemned on the father's account, but everyone on his own account. There are some of the offspring who do not commit evils, or act contrary to the goods and truths of the church, and these are saved. It is otherwise with the offspring who commit evils, or act contrary to the goods and truths of the church, these are condemned. But he who does not do this is saved, although the fathers are condemned. Everyone is dealt with according to his deeds. The impious man who is converted is saved, while the pious man, if he becomes impious, is condemned. Both are of divine justice. Exhortation to be converted, because the Lord wishes the salvation of all. Ezekiel chapter 19. The first thing of the church among the fathers of the Israelitish nation was destructive of all things of the church. That nation was likewise destroying all things of the church. They were natural external, and opposed to all things of the church, and therefore they became perverted and were destroyed. And afterwards they were wholly destroyed by means of reasonings from the natural man. The ancient church was in divine truths, but in the Israelitish and Jewish church all divine truth was perverted and rejected. Ezekiel chapter 20. Successive states of the Jewish church. Those who are of the Jewish church worship the Lord with the mouth and not with the heart, the first of them, that is, their fathers. They worshipped other gods and did not depart from them, however much admonished, because they were natural external, this concerning them when in Egypt. They were let into temptations and then instructed. Also, respecting conjunction of the Lord with the church. And they cannot even thus be brought to the worship of the Lord. Although they were of such a character, yet they were not cast off. Their offspring were instructed in like manner. They, in like manner, reprobated all things of the church. In consequence, they had representatives different from the former good ones, because they had profaned them, this concerning them in the wilderness. When they had been introduced into the land of Canaan, they worshipped other gods in every way. They profaned things holy. They are to be cast out of the church, because they have been such from the beginning. They will not return to the church, but will be among the profaners of the holy things of the church. A new church will be instituted, which will worship the Lord, and they will acknowledge their evils, and at the same time the Lord's mercy. The church has perished by reason of falsities. An external or natural church, which is able to be in the light of truth, it is destroyed by evil love. It is the Jewish nation, which is here further treated of. Ezekiel chapter 21. They will all perish by means of falsities of evil, grief of doctrine, destruction by means of interior falsities of evil, grief of the church, because they cannot be converted. All things that remain will also perish, owing to falsities still more interior. Destruction will come by reasonings from falsities, and yet they will have worship, but from these falsities. Their worship will be vain. That church will come to its end when the Lord comes. It will be the same with those who have falsified the sense of the letter of the word. They will be cast into hell. Ezekiel chapter 23. Church adulterating truths and goods of doctrine. It is coming nearer to its end. They destroyed truths and goods by means of it. They have been guilty of various adulterations of truth and good. They are destroyed. Falsities and evils of every kind are mixed with truths and goods. The truth of the word has been adulterated, also its good. Likewise the remaining things which, though false and evil, have been made to appear as though they were true and good. Nothing is left over. They will perish in hell. Ezekiel chapter 23. The church which is in truth, and the church which is in good. There are two churches, one which is in truth, which is Samaria, and the other which is in good, which is Jerusalem. Both are external natural, perverted in the beginning. Samaria falsified the truths of the word by reasonings from knowledges. Thus she became corrupted. Jerusalem likewise falsified truths and adulterated goods also by various means. Thereby she separated herself from the Lord, and defiled truths and goods still further by knowledges of the natural man. They will wholly perish on the day of judgment. Thus the truths and goods of the church will no longer be perverted. They will be in hell, where there is nothing but evils and falsities. They will also be in the falsification of all truth, and this because they have denied the Lord. They have destroyed all the holy things of the church. They boasted before others because of their having the word and the holy things of the church, although these were entirely falsified and adulterated. Falsities and evils will destroy all things of the church among them, and such must be separated, that they may no longer mislead. Ezekiel chapter 24. The end of the church among the Jewish nation. Through the word, truths together with goods have been given them, also the divine presence. They are filthy by reason of the adulteration and profanation of truth and good. The Lord has labored with all his might, that they might grow better, but it could not be done. Therefore they will die in their profanities. Everything of the church will be taken away from them, and yet there will be no grief on that account. This will take place when the Lord comes into the world. Then he will destroy all the worship of that church, and there will be no grief on that account. When the Lord comes, those who will be led to the new church will be instructed. Ezekiel chapter 25. Against those who are in the sense of the letter of the word, and who pervert the truths of religion by things which do not belong to religion, who are meant by the children of Ammon. Because they wonder at the destruction of the church, they will not know truths. Because they have rejoiced over this, they will pervert truths. Still more when they pervert goods of the church. Of those who destroy the external of the word and of doctrine, they will be rejected for a like reason. Those who by falsities of faith devastate the church will be devastated and perish on the day of judgment. Ezekiel chapter 26. Of the church as to its knowledges of truth, which is meant by Tyre. They imagine that all things of the church consist in knowledges. Thereby come falsities which destroy the ultimates of doctrine. These and also affections for truth are destroyed by knowledges. Much reasoning from the natural man will destroy all truths, from which comes self-intelligence. Thus all affection for spiritual truth will perish, so that nothing of the church will any longer remain. Their end will be in hell, which will cause the rest of them to be in terror. When they have been cast into the hells, the knowledges of truth will be evident to those who will be in heaven and in the church. Ezekiel chapter 27. Further concerning the church in respect to knowledges of truth, which is Tyre. The ancient church had knowledges of truth and good of every kind and species, and by means of them it had intelligence. Truths that protected that church. Acquisitions and communications of all the knowledges. Knowledge, intelligence, and wisdom by means of them. Divine worship from them. Truths and goods of every kind, and thus everything of the church acquired by means of them. Through natural knowledges they have perished. Lamentation over their destruction, and that is the countenance of hell. Ezekiel chapter 28. Since they believe that they are learned from mere knowledges, and say in their heart that they are most intelligent from themselves, therefore they will falsify all knowledges of truth, and will perish thereby. Respecting learning from the word. From the word they have all truths and goods of heaven and of the church, in consequence of which they were in intelligence at first, but afterwards this was dissipated by means of their pride. Natural love consumed all things of the church, resulting in their destruction. Of the understanding of truth, which is meant by Zidon, it will perish by means of falsities. Their destruction, lest the church should be still further destroyed. A new church will come into existence when the former has been condemned. Ezekiel chapter 29. Of the natural man who, in things divine, trusts nothing but his knowledges. Such will pervert the truths of the church by applying their knowledges to falsities. Because truths have been perverted in this manner, all power, which is of truth, has been destroyed in their case, and all truth will be utterly devastated until they will no longer have truth. Nevertheless, something of a church will be established out of those who are natural and in knowledges. Reasonings from knowledges of the natural man will not destroy knowledges of truth with them, but these will be destroyed by reasonings from the natural man with those who trust knowledges alone and have perverted the truths of the church. Those who are of the church that the Lord will establish will have truths of doctrine. Ezekiel chapter 30. The coming of the Lord, when all things of the church have been destroyed by knowledges of the natural man. Then all who trust in these knowledges will perish through evil loves. By such, the truths of the church will be destroyed through reasonings from the natural man, derived from falsities, even until there is nothing left but falsities. All things which are of the knowledge of the natural man of every sort will become hell. They will have no truth, thus no power. This will take place through reasonings from the natural man. Ezekiel chapter 31. Of the natural man who is in knowledges, In the ancient church, a rational flourished that was derived from knowledges of every kind, through their confirming, by means of these, the divine things of the church. And from this source they had spiritual intelligence. The pride of self-intelligence, from which comes a trust in learning, has wholly cast them down from intelligence, and has deprived them of all the truths of the church. They are cast into hell, that they may no longer destroy. There they are shut up, lest, while continuing in their falsifications, they should spread their falsities abroad. Ezekiel chapter 32. Lament over those who, by knowledges, have perverted the holy things of the church. They pervert all truths of the church. They fall into all falsities of evil, until they no longer see what is good and true. Those who are outside the church are horrified at their falsities. They destroy all things of the church by reasonings from the natural man. They shall be cast into hell, that they may no longer pervert truths in those who are in an affection for truth. In hell they will be associated with those who have profaned the holy things of the word, also with those who have falsified truths of doctrine, with those who have falsified the sense of the letter of the word. All of these will be with those who by knowledges have perverted the holy things of the church, and thus they will be separated from those who are of the church, lest they persecute them. Ezekiel chapter 33. Of those who instruct and are instructed. Those who are instructed by the preacher concerning falsities and do not take heed, perish. When the preacher sees falsities and does not give instruction concerning them, he perishes. The same is true of everyone who teaches doctrine, when he teaches and is not heard, or when he does not teach. So now in the church they must be taught in order that they may be converted, because the Lord wishes the salvation of all. If the evil man becomes good, his evil is forgiven. If the good man becomes evil, his good is not regarded. These things are divine justice. A perverted church declares that they are the church because they have the word. Nevertheless, they falsify the word, worship another god, and do evil, and will perish by reason of falsities of evil, notwithstanding their hearing the word, and being in external worship. Ezekiel chapter 34. Respecting teachers who regard their own good only, and not the good of the church. In consequence, those who are of the church come into an evil life. Being such, everything of the church is taken from them. When the Lord comes into the world, he will gather the church together and will teach it divine truths. The evil among them he will separate. Evil shepherds destroy everything of the church and destroy the simple. When the Lord comes, he will teach and save these. He will both teach them and protect them from falsities, and they will acknowledge him. Ezekiel chapter 35. Respecting falsities of faith. All truth of faith among them perishes through falsities. Falsification of the word from this, until there is nothing but falsity. They claim that the church is with them. They speak against the church and against the Lord. When the church comes into existence, they will be devastated in respect to everything of the word. Ezekiel chapter 36. The perverted church in general. It has been destroyed by evils and falsities. Because it has been destroyed even to its ultimates, those that have been destroyed will perish. A new church will be established by the Lord, which will be in truths and goods. The evils and falsities of the perverted church will no longer do any harm. That perverted church will perish utterly. Yet it will still be tolerated because of the word, and because the Lord is known by means of the word. A new church will then be established, which, being freed from falsities and evils, will be in truths and goods, and will acknowledge the Lord. It will reject evils. Its intelligence will gradually grow by means of divine truths. The Lord will be acknowledged in it, and there will be the worship of Him. Ezekiel chapter 37. It is represented that the church was destitute of all life from good and truth. It is foretold that a new church will come into existence in which will be life. This also came to pass when that church was first instructed in truths and was thus made fit for receiving. And it then received life. Thus the Lord did when He came into the world, and a new church was established by Him. There were two churches, the celestial and the spiritual, and the two together were one. This will be under the Lord, and the two will become one church from the Lord, and will be protected from infernal evils and falsities. The church will be different, because the conjunction will be different. Ezekiel chapter 38. Those who are in the mere sense of the letter of the word, and in a worship therefrom, which is external without an internal, are meant by Gog. Everything and all things of that church will perish. That worship will possess the church, and will vastate it, and it will thus be in externals without internals. The state of the church will therefore be changed, and the truths and goods of religion will perish in consequence, and falsities will succeed in their place. Ezekiel chapter 39. Those who are in the mere sense of the letter and in external worship will come into the church but will perish. These are meant by Gog. This will take place when the Lord comes and establishes the church. This church will then disperse all the evils and falsities of such and will wholly destroy them. The new church that will be established by the Lord will be imbued with goods of all kinds, and the former church will be destroyed because of evils and falsities. The Lord will then gather together a church from all nations. Chapter 40. Respecting a new church from the Lord, after the Jewish church has been destroyed. What its quality will be. All things of doctrine in respect to celestial good and truth. All things of it in respect to spiritual good and truth. All things of it in respect to external good and truth. Chapter 41. All things of worship of the internal church in respect to good and truth. Ezekiel chapter 42. All things of worship of that external church in respect to good and truth. Ezekiel chapter 43. The word in that church in respect to the sense of its letter. Worship of the Lord from good of love in that church. Ezekiel chapter 44. Every good of the church and of worship is from the Lord. The Jewish nation destroyed the church. The nation will not be in that church, but others of whom the new church will consist, which will acknowledge the Lord, concerning which, and its life, doctrine, worship, and ministry. Ezekiel chapter 45. Concerning that church, its outmosts will be holy, the holy of doctrine, its statutes. Ezekiel chapter 46. Influx of the Lord from divine love. Worship of the Lord there. Ezekiel chapter 47. Influx of divine good and divine truth from the Lord. From this influx the angels of the three heavens and men have spiritual life, and from the divine good and divine truth they have intelligence and charity. Inheritances or partitions of the church and heaven, according to goods and truths in the whole complex, which is according to the tribes of Israel. Ezekiel chapter 48. That partition continued for those who are in the third heaven, who are the priests and Levites. The Lord is in the midst of them. The further partition or inheritance continued. The knowledges of that church, which are introductory truths. This church is the Lord's church.